Hello and welcome to this Wednesday evening stream where we're going to have a look at continuing your game dev journey. Nice to see people in the chat. It's always lovely to see some people there. So hello to Unai, Daigoro, Mark Dodsworth, Plasma, and Taylor Bombard. So hey team, nice to see you all. Hope you're doing all right. I'm joined today by Jogo and Stuart. Say hi, guys. So this stream today is all about how can we continue our game dev journey. We know that Crayta is sadly sunsetting on the 3rd of March, so that will be the sort of the end of Crayta. But the amazing things that we've created, the friends we've made, and all of these amazing skills that we have, they should not be considered to have gone to waste. And that's what this stream is all about today. It's all about really capitalizing on the cool stuff that you've done and making some memories, making sure that we can go back and have a look at, this awesome, the games we made, the worlds we built, and do it all, with kind of a sweet reminder, if you like. And if you want to continue your game dev journey, that's what this is all about. Like, if you want to keep making games, keep working on games, or maybe you see yourself as a hobbyist, someone who wants to just keep going making games for yourself for fun, or maybe you see yourself as someone who wants to embark on a career in game development. This stream we're going to look at a few different things that we can do to sort of go on these journeys. Before we go any further though, I think we're going to group up and head over to the showcase of showcases. So let's add Stuart, and let's add Evo J, Gray, wherever you are. Current, am I not friends with you? Oh, who knows? Let's group up. Jogo and Stuart must mime everything. Okay. Yeah. Let me know how the audio is. I can see Jogo doing some solid miming there. Thanks, Jogo. No Discord audio. Okay. We can't hear them. No, that's not ideal, is it? I wonder what's going on there. Let me just make sure I've got that turned up. So let's do this. Voice and video. Can I get a hello from you too, please? I can't hear you now. Oh. Yep, no, can't hear you. Can't hear anyone. Interesting, huh? One sec. We'll get this sorted. Don't worry. And then we can be off on our merry adventure. Audio.
Yeah, so if they can hear me, it's going to be very bouncing. There we go. Oh,
I can hear you. I can hear you now. Can you say some words again? I think it should be fixed.
Hello. Oh.
That looks like it's working for me. Is it working for you, audience? Beautiful audience people? Hey, Varun. Hey, Pablo. Okay now.
Okay.
Thanks, Pablo.
Okay now. That's great. That's what we're going to hear.
Oh, Daigoro
Everything is okay now.
Now it works. Yay! We're here. We made it.
Is possibly winding us up. Possibly.
I mean, it wouldn't be the first time, but
No.
yeah. And,
Strath says it's working.
Hey.
I trust Strath.
Let's go and play the showcase of showcases. Let's get in there. This is where we're going to talk about some things.
Jake
No.
Matthews is miming.
by the looks of it. Ah, the joys of streaming, right? Streaming multiple people.
I mean, we're really going for it. There's 3 of us here. This is going to be great.
Also, I appear to be frozen, but I honestly have a camera. But let's not worry about that.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll dip in and out of being frozen, each of us, as things come and go. Maybe that'll pick things up. Okay, so what are we going to look at today? So the first thing we're going to look at is almost like a bit of a big picture. Let's talk about some of the different places you can go to with some of the stuff that you've learned, some of the skills you've gained, some of the contacts you've made, with other people. Then we're going to do a bit of a skills audit. So look at all of the different skills that you've picked up along the way, and it'd be great to have you feed in any ideas that you might have around skills that you've picked up, just so that everyone can benefit from like knowing some of the things they might have learned that they might not be considering are really valuable, really important skills. Skills that would be amazing in the games industry, amazing in any industry, that kind of thing. So we'll do a bit of a skills audit and jam some ideas around that. Then we're going to have a look at sort of how to create a show reel. We're going to have a look at the difference between some of the like main contenders for game software, game engine software out there, and some of the similarities with Crayta. So we'll take a quick look at Unreal Engine 5, and we'll take a quick look at Unity, just to sort of see the sort of similarities between edit mode in Crayta and those 2 huge pieces of software that you might have heard of before. There's lots of different game engines, so we're just looking at a couple that have just been sort of handpicked, but there's loads out there. And then we're going to have a little talk about making a show reel and how to record footage in games, and not just like the technicalities of this is how you record a game, but also like the difference between cinematic recording and documentation recording, and what you're going to want probably to take away from Crayta before it closes on the 3rd of March. So that's it. There's like an action-packed couple of hours. We'll be streaming until around 8 o'clock. And sort of, so we've got quite a few things to cover. But also really keen to hear if what people have, what people want from this stream. So if you've got other ideas or you've got any questions for Jogo, myself, or Stuart, all 3 of us, or other people that are in the stream, please don't hesitate to chuck some questions in the chat. It's a really good opportunity. We love talking about this stuff. So if you've got questions around it, fire away, and we'll see what we can do to answer those. Daigoro's stream is delayed. I'm sorry, Daigoro. It'll be with you soon. At this moment, we'll be with you real soon. Hopefully now. Hopefully it's now. Anyway. Okay. Should we crack on? So the first thing we were going to do... this is the showcase of showcases, by the way. Jogo, do you want to talk a little bit about what this place is?
Yeah. It's a new hub world that I worked on and created with Rinse Crayta, who you probably have seen quite a few times around in Discord. And I wanted to do a bit of a celebration of all the amazing showcase worlds that we've done, and by extension, all the amazing work that the team has done in creating so many amazing assets, some of which have had huge numbers of uses throughout loads of great games, some of which a lot of people might not be familiar with. So it was a great opportunity to put a whole world together and just demonstrate just the rich history of Crayta, really, in just one great world. And then you can actually travel through each of the portals to see what every world could have looked like, because almost every season has had a nice showcase. So it was lovely to link them all together and to make it really easy for people to find them and travel through them and see what Crayta looked like 2 years ago.
Yeah, one of my biggest takeaways from this space is the sheer variety in different seasons we've had. Like, I mean, there's aliens next to dragons, next to like steam engines. It's mind blowing. It's just been an absolute, yeah, so many different sort of ideas and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I went travelling through them earlier, and I know Jogo's been updating them as well. And I was like really impressed by the variety and the content we actually made over our time, the past 2 years or so.
Yeah, pretty incredible stuff. Let's talk a little bit about what we're doing. So you all have options now. Crayta is a UGC platform, right? So it's a platform which is designed to make it quite easy to make games. The whole idea is to make it so that game design and game development is open to everyone. So where could you possibly take some of what you've learned? Where might you go to next? And shout out in the chat if you've got some ideas about where you might be going next, what you might be up to. This stream isn't really going to be go into the games industry, because whilst that's one completely valid option, I'm sure there are other options that we can talk about. Jogo, you were pretty adamant that there is like there's a pathway here which is kind of like making games for yourself as like a hobby.
Absolutely, yeah. There's no pressure or demand to continue a game journey in a professional sense if that's not what you feel you want to do. The wonderful thing about Crayta is it allowed people to create games at their own time, in their own pace, at their own style, their own homes, working with some friends, picking it up whenever they had time. And it's a wonderful way to enjoy making games, to express creativity, to just have a great time with the games industry. And so there's still so many UGC platforms out there, all of which have got the same kind of functionality in that you can create games, you can publish games, and nobody's looking over your shoulder, poking you, shouting at you, telling you got to do it on time. So it's a really, really valid way to enjoy making games for yourself, for your friends. Have fun.
Yeah, totally. I think that's a really valid point. I guess in the games industry, you're suddenly on, you've got budgets and time constraints and things like that, which when you're working in a UGC platform and making games for yourself, you don't really have to worry about that. So if you want to spend 4 hours on one tiny corner of a map to make it absolutely perfect, that's totally doable, and you can enjoy doing that. In the industry, that might be a little bit different. But what are some other options for creating games? So we've got the idea that you can kind of carry on as a like just making games for yourself and enjoying that. There's other pathways as well. So Drycoast is saying definitely look at platforms with similar collaborative functionality. Crayta spoiled me with that. Yeah, definitely. Mark Dodsworth says, I want to try Roblox, see how easy it is to make great games in there. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of great platforms out there. There's platforms which have got larger audiences than Crayta did. There's platforms with smaller audiences, so lots of options there. There's also, I guess, one direction might be this whole, keep making games for yourself and enjoy it. And another place you could find yourself in the future is working in the games industry, exhibiting some of the amazing creative skills that you've gained from making games in Crayta. So there's this whole other side. Stuart, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the sort of areas people can go into the games industry?
Yeah, sure. So obviously there's quite a varied range of areas now for the games industry. When I joined, there was literally about 4 different roles, which was QA, design, programming, art, maybe animation. And now there's so many. There's technical artists, there's level designers, there's programmers that just do combat programmers. There are programmers that do other areas like web development, and they've all sprung out of nowhere in the past sort of 10, 15 years of me working in the industry. And they're all quite varied roles now as well. So you need your specialities. You can't just, have one area of knowledge. You need to know about one area of knowledge really well. And that's kind of what some of the roles are looking for now. But equally, there are still some open roles that you don't need to know about absolutely everything, but you need to kind of understand about it and be able to react to it.
Yeah, for sure. I guess this kind of alludes to like where you could end up is you could find yourself making games for in the industry, but that's like there's a huge spectrum there between making games in a huge company and you're specializing in one small part of a much larger game. For example, maybe your job is just programming dynamic lighting effects. But you could also look at, working in a smaller company, and you might have heard the term indie before. So sort of a small studio where you have to wear lots and lots of hats. Maybe you're a programmer, but you might also dabble in some like game design, some web development, some UI development, that kind of stuff. So you might end up, if you work in a smaller company, you might end up trying out lots of different, or having like almost a bit of a stab at lots of different areas. And there's no reason that you can't also go independent and only work with one or two people and do a lot of the stuff yourself. I would say if you're going to do that, you could look at tools where a lot of the heavy lifting is already done for you, and spend your time making the games, the stuff that you're really good at, that you've showcased in Crayta. Let like the engines do the heavy lifting and the hardcore programming, and you concentrate on making the games that have absolutely delighted us and all of the other members of the population of Crayta. So yeah, like lots of different ways in. There's big companies, small companies. Carry on making games for yourself. Just video your games to show your mates. Whatever you want to do. Loads of different options, loads of different ways in. It's great to see some people. It's great to hear about people on the Discord and see people in the comments now talking about where they're going next. Because although Crayta is ending, it would be a real shame for the amazing creators on Crayta to, not continue developing those extraordinary skills and that amazing creativity you already have. So there's a few different pathways there, and that is by no means like all of the pathways that you can choose. And you might start making games as a hobby, might release a game, it sells loads, and then all of a sudden you're in the games industry. You might not, and so there's lots of ways, sort of pathways open to us all now. So I think the next thing we were going to talk about is maybe some of take a look at some of the skills we've picked up whilst we've been making games in Crayta. So the rest of this stream, it's probably worth bearing in mind like what sort of direction you're going to go in, as maybe think about that. That might be a bit of a long question to think about, or take a while to think about. But these other aspects, these other things we're going to do, the skills audit and then show reel filming and that sort of stuff, they're applicable to all of these different pathways. They all kind of will offer you something, whether you decide to carry on as a hobbyist or try and break into the industry or whatever you want to do. So I thought we could do a little bit of an ideas jam if everyone's up for that, around a skills audit. So a skills audit is essentially thinking of specific skills we've picked up along the way. So I've got these two categories: soft skills and technical skills. Technical skills includes things like game design, art, that kind of stuff. So the technical skills that you kind of built yourself in Crayta, you've developed and nurtured in Crayta that are to do with making games, the process of making games. And then the soft skills are the sort of the other skills that you might have developed along the way in the last couple of years, collaborating with people around the world, that kind of thing, you know, and also being able to reflect and stuff like that. So I'm kicking the door open. Anyone who wants to, Daigoro's straight in there with, on the top of that list is networking and social skills. So you're not talking about networking, netcode. Definitely social skills. I don't know. Crayta was launched in a pandemic, and you know, we're working with people all around the world, different time zones. So there's this whole huge part of skills, this huge myriad of skills you've learned in social skills.
I think that's an incredibly important one. It's a wonderful place to start. So thank you for that, Daigoro. It's so important because no matter how large a team you're working with, whether it's 400 people or 4, and I've done games with studios of both those scales, it's incredibly social. It's incredibly collaborative, and you need to be working with people all the time.
Yeah, and you need to work with quite varied and different people as well, from all walks of life, and it's sometimes quite tricky. So you need to know how to, you know, communicate well with a wide variety of people, really.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned there, like the sort of the diversity of people that have made up the incredible community in Crayta, and so being able to work with a diverse range of people, you know, people who speak different languages to you, have different cultural different cultures to you, all that kind of stuff. Like being able to, you know, work with someone and focus on the work and not get tied into, like, I don't know, cultural differences or anything like that, and just celebrate cultural differences, and rather than it's hugely important, and demonstrating that is something that any employers would want to see big time. They want to know they're not going to hire someone who just shuts down and only wants to work on their own. Like, those sort of teamwork skills are incredibly valuable. And linking people together, yeah. So being able to, that's another good one, Daigoro, I like that. So almost like being a catalyst for other people linking together. That's really, really powerful. Like, and being involved in those conversations and generating sort of, generating collaborative links amongst other people. Super helpful, you know, and great stuff. So.
Yeah, there's been a couple of projects that I've been on where I've been working with, you know, programmers and then artists, and they have different ways of thinking about things.
Yeah.
So you go to a programmer and you give them a lot of technical know-how and they'll respond well. But if you go to the artist and give them that same technical knowledge in that format, they might not respond very well to it. So you need to tweak that, something that they understand and can relate to. Yeah,
and I think if anyone's worked, you know, or made a game with someone else in Crayta, you probably already crossed some of those bridges. Like, I don't know, if you're working in a team of 2 and one of you's like the main coder and one of you's the main artist, you're already having those conversations where you're taking something that you have in-depth knowledge about and then being able to communicate that in a way that someone who doesn't have that same in-depth knowledge can understand enough that you can work together. Like, that's an incredibly valuable skill, and it's so important in the games industry.
It's a great way of looking at this, which is recognizing talent. And when you're talking about finding someone who can solve your problem, it's wonderful if you can be somebody who you're working with, or somebody else in the community, or somebody else in your team or studio. You think, now that person isn't really working on my part of the game, but they could really help me out. Then being able to throw that open, a lot of studios would be really happy to sort of join people together if they can solve a problem and make the game better. So it's great to be able to recognize people's skills and realize that they can really help you out. And skillful people are brilliant. They're not a threat to your ability to express yourself in a studio. It's a wonderful bounty to draw upon, that you can find people who can do exactly the right thing that you need doing, whether even if you're just junior or a high producer, finding people who can actually help with your problem and understanding what their skills are is absolutely essential. A wonderful way to make better games.
Yeah, that's a really valuable piece of insight and collaboration. Finding people that can that you can support and that can support what you're up to. Really important. I really like this one from Psychosis, which is finishing projects.
I'm not very good at that.
I can imagine Psychosis is probably better than me finishing projects, but that is a skill. That last 10% of a project, which takes 90% of the time, or it might not even take 90% of the time, but it takes 90% of the motivation. Starting a project is easy and happens all the time. Finishing a project, that's a skill. I feel like that's a technical skill.
There's a thing called the Ideas Fairy who comes and visits you every couple of months and just goes with a magic wand on your head, and you have a new idea that more exciting than what I'm doing right now. I'll come back to that and finish it soon, I promise. And then there's another finished project and another one and another one. So Psychosis is so right. Being able to finish a project is incredibly important. See it through.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Ideas Fairy is wonderful to have. But maybe like one thing you can do is keep a notepad of just ideas. And, at some point you'll be sitting down in front of the computer and you're like, what do I make? Nothing's coming to me. Or the game jam has just kicked off. Nothing's coming to me. I can't think of what to make to do this theme. That's when you need your little notebook, which is full of ideas from the Ideas Fairy.
I used to have one of those. I haven't had one for a bit, Andy, but yeah, I did used to have a notebook that I wrote down wonderful ideas in.
Yeah,
I think a lot of them are stored on my phone now.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. Or like one of those sort of programs that goes between phones and PCs, and what are they called? Knowledge something.
This is alchemy. This is alchemy. You're speaking of crazy magic there, Andy.
Yeah.
Varyn's had a good comment here. I don't know if it's a soft skill, but being able to fix someone's problems by talking to them over a call, etc. I mean, that's fantastic. That's a wonderful skill to have. Being able to ask the right questions of somebody you're working with. Ask, what is it doing? And then understand and analyze what they're doing. Because sometimes you can't actually see their code or step through it through a debugger to find out exactly what thing is going on where. So being able to talk to people, ask the right questions, listen correctly, that's a great point.
Well, normally programmers do their code reviews, right? And they'll talk when they're doing that. They'll chat to one another.
Yeah.
Discuss whether they can improve things within the code. So that seems very valid. Yeah,
absolutely. Another couple that have come up is asking for help or knowing when to ask for help. And I think this almost is like part of learning and being it's called being a self-directed learner if you want to get all teachy about it. But it's basically you identifying when you don't know something and then having the motivation and the tenacity to go and find out the answer and learn it and then being able to teach someone else. That's like a humanity level important thing that everyone who's a human needs to start figuring out. If you can self-direct yourself to learn something and then help to distribute that knowledge, that's amazing for not just you but all of the people that you interact with afterwards. So learning and teaching is, if you are in games, tech, or anything to do with something that progresses forward, which is, I think, every industry, being able to direct your own learning and improve and have better processes is super useful. And that applies to almost anything, because there's always going to be new advances in technology in every industry. So knowing like, oh, I don't know how to use this new thing that's come out, and approaching that with curiosity rather than fear means you can learn things and gain new skills and even switch industries or make even cooler stuff like throughout your entire career and beyond. So worth bearing that in mind. Yeah, adaptation, as Mehuele Aquemo suggests, adaptation is a soft skill. Adapting a scope or making simple if some mechanic can't be done, working around something, definitely. Yeah, really good. Okay, so let's talk about some technical skills now. There's so many amazing soft skills we've come up with there, and there's so many more. And it's worth like just taking a minute and just think about some of the amazing stuff that amazing skills that you've not only gained but also demonstrated and then leveled up during your journey with Crayta. So I would advise everyone to do a skills audit for themselves if they are embarking on like a job hunt or a change in direction in something, especially when it comes to soft skills, because if you're changing direction, you want to know what you can demonstrate to this, what you can take with you to the next place. Okay, technical skills. So technical skills, I'm talking about making the nuts and bolts of making a game, like some of the stuff that you may not have known in 2019 before Crayta came out, that you've now learned. So, for me, a technical skill I've learned is live streaming. So if you've done any of that, then that could be a technical skill that you've learned. Live streaming from a technical point of view, learning how to set everything up, all of that sort of stuff. So here I am, 3 years in, able to do that. So pretty pleased. Basic coding skills. So coding skills, thanks, Singsar. Coding skills, not just programming. I think, Joker, did you have a good point about programming languages versus coding, like knowing how to code?
Yes. This comes from some really, really senior programmers who I've worked with and who I've done sort of university talks with, who've sort of tackled this question head on. When people ask us, have I learned the wrong language? I learned C#, should I have learned C++? I learned JavaScript, should I have learned C#? And the answer has been a really resounding, it doesn't matter. What matters is, can you construct clean code? Can you analyze your code and refactor it? Can you describe what each step through each function is doing? And if you can think in that wonderfully structured way, actually adopting a new language is relatively easy. And a good employer might actually say, well, I need people who can write in C++, but this person C# is pretty solid, and they obviously are an excellent programmer. Take them, train them up. So it's really important to realize that all the stuff you've done in Lua, a lot of that is extremely transportable to other programming languages and to other types of employment. So don't feel bad that if you spent years learning Lua and suddenly it's gone because you move into a different environment. It's not. It's the skills you've got that are really solid and really important that will take you through it.
Very important point. There's a distinction between coding, knowing how to code, and knowing the syntax of a specific language. Knowing how to code is the harder one. I think I talked about this in the intro to coding, intro to scripting streams that I did, where it was basically thinking like a programmer is the hard part. The syntax and remembering the right keywords and all that, that's the bit you can learn easily on the next job or whenever you're hired next. So, yeah. Got coding skills. Any other sort of technical skills? Daigoro, learning English. Learning English was very beneficial for learning coding.
Learning other languages can be useful.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially now with this worldwide development process.
Yeah.
That a lot of companies have got.
So like you're talking about distributed, like the fact that a lot of teams are now fully remote.
Yeah, a lot of teams are fully remote, and even a lot of companies have different sites around the world.
Yeah.
So you could have one in, I don't know, the UK, then you can have one in France, for example. Anywhere. There's quite a few that have outsourced to India as well.
Yeah. So sort of being able to, I guess working remotely. I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? Like, that's exploded in the last few years is remote teams and teams with people all over the world being able to work together. Absolutely.
I think Baron makes a good point that they've learnt more about coding in Crayta than in 2 years of college. I can relate to this. When I left uni, I was like, after 3 years or 4 years I was there, and I went to Frontier, and I learnt more in the first 6 months of being in a games company than I did in 3 years of being at a university. But then again, that's not always what the university is about, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's other skills that, like we're doing here with the technical skills. There's other skills that you can pick up from a university degree that sort of go into this soft skills part. A university degree also is supposed to sort of teach you that self-directed learning thing, which you can kind of like, you can kind of see by the final year in a degree. It's on you to go and learn what you need to learn and then demonstrate that you can do that. That's usually what a final year of a degree looks like.
Yeah, you usually have some sort of dissertation, which is what I had. So I had a project that I was making, and then I had to document that project and how I did it. But you're right, it's different kind of skills. It is the soft skills that we were discussing earlier. I think somebody mentioned level design.
Yeah,
level design. That's a whole
skill.
world in itself. Level design, because there's so many types of level design. There's the actual environment creator, the person who creates the environments and plots out the map. You've got narrative designers who often don't get into the tools very much at all, but will be writing all the narratives and the dialogue and special concepts behind the levels. You've also got people who are technical scripters who really understand the sort of not the actual back end coding of the game, but the actual level design scripting methodology. So there's all sorts of people involved in level design, and some of them are really soft and fluffy brained. Hello, that's me. And some of them are extremely technical and answer every questions with ones and zeros. They're really useful because you can get them to do all your tricky bits.
Did I do your tricky bits, Jogo?
Always, yes, you did a lot of my tricky bits. I used to. It was so anything I had to script normally had to be sent to me by Stuart or Russ or Andy or Adam. So that's another good thing about recognizing talent and getting them to do your job for you.
Yeah.
What else we got there? Optimization and bug hunting, absolutely critical. Yeah, looking at your game when it's finished and realizing it runs like there's an elephant sitting on your hands when you're trying to use a controller. Fantastic thing to be able to do, because every game ever gets chopped to pieces before it's released.
Yeah.
So optimization is fantastic. Bug hunting is a totally different thing as well. So those are two really important skills. Agile methodologies, yes, that's really important. our games way back when I started making games, which I'm not going to tell you when. Write your design document and you'd make the game, and the vision that you set out in your design document was absolutely what you would make, apart from the fact you chop half of it out because you didn't have time. Agile methodology is really important because you have your idea of what you want to create and you start pursuing that path, and you allow it to adjust depending on what's working and what you're enjoying and what's really being successful with your audience, and you can sort of be agile in that respect. That's a really important way to actually get stuff done.
Yeah. And we leave that to the producers, right, Jogo?
Hey, I've done that as well. It's good fun.
Yeah. I've done a little bit of project management. Not necessarily production, but yeah.
That's all great stuff. I've just sort of I've taken game design and I've broken it into sort of, because like game design, or any kind of design, you are putting yourself in the head of your imaginary end user. So you're having to come at your game as if you're them, that like empathy kind of experience. So that part of the design skills is almost a soft skill that you can take almost anywhere. And there's some great literature around design if you are interested in that. There's one of my favorites, Don Norman's forgotten what it is. Yeah, there's a really good book on that.
There are lots of detailed books.
Design
on
of everyday
areas.
Design of Everyday Things is a fantastic book on design as a general thing, which covers loads of really useful design principles. So I would very much recommend
useful
that.
Because almost nobody understands what game design is.
I still
Even game designers don't.
Goes double for people who work in the games industry. Nobody understands what design is. Everybody's got an idea of what it is. Every designer thinks they know what it is, and literally everybody is wrong. It's the most complicated, confusing thing in the world. I think Andy started with a wonderful way of encapsulating it, that it's putting yourself in the head of a million other people and trying to find out what they like. So that is the most important art of being a designer, especially as an experiential designer, is putting your emotions in other people's hands and trying to see how they feel and what's going to work to sort of engineer their emotions to having a really, really interesting time.
Engineering emotions.
Yeah.
Emotional engineering. I know it sounds a really stupid, pretentious way of saying it, but it absolutely is what a lot of game design really is.
Definitely.
And it's also about you yourself playing that game and understanding where all the problems are, where people are going to get stuck.
Yeah.
Pain points, and then trying to improve on those.
Absolutely. That's really valuable stuff.
Some great stuff coming through here. Somebody saying lighting. That's fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Lighting.
Don't forget lighting.
Lighting and design, yeah.
Swan has come through and said, "Hey, everyone. Hey, Chris."
UX and UI also really important.
It's not just lighting,
that's not even mentioned on here yet. Let's put that as a whole nother separate thing. UX. I'm actually going to split those out. UX is one thing, the user experience, and then UI is something else. Jogo will tell you all
about that as well.
Which is...
Have we got enough time in the stream to do this?
No, that's usability and user experience.
That's a whole thing.
That's a stream in itself. That's a blog. That's a book. That's a religion. So we can't capture that tonight.
If you're interested in these topics, definitely take a look out there. There's some amazing resources. I mentioned Don Norman's Design of Everyday Things. If you're interested in level design, I started following a really good YouTuber called Steve Lee, who does some amazing stuff, has an amazing level design community, a lot of modding going on there. So if you like level design, I look at modding as a possible next step for making games, because it's essentially you have all the game mechanics pre-built for you, and you can just make the levels. You can like give yourself a task, I don't know, make a level which teaches players how to use this specific game mechanic, jumping, for example, and then set yourself a task to go and make a level in whatever game as a modding platform. So it could be, I don't know, Portal or GTA or whatever, like different games out there, lots of different games, lots of different modding platforms, some easier than others. But yeah, modding is a really good option if you're interested in just level design. So that might be another pathway you can go down. Any more?
You can learn so much. Sorry, and you can learn so much from level design simply by playing loads and loads of community levels of a game that you know and love. I learned a huge amount of level design from playing and making Trackmania levels. I've never worked on a driving game in my life, but it's so interesting when you see loads and loads of community levels and you start thinking, they're doing it right, they're doing it wrong. Oh, I was doing it wrong too. And you learn so much because it's sort of odd. There's only so much you can learn from a beautifully finished, polished game that's had $100 million spent on it. Playing average and weak games and you can actually see what's going on becomes really useful. So playing community created levels for well-known games is a fantastic way to learn. Do it.
Yep. Yeah, there's loads of modding groups out there as well. So if you don't feel comfortable on your own, you can join in with a modding group and succeed with them. Use their talents as we keep going. We keep repeating. Learn out how to delegate.
I would say, like, if you're getting involved in another community, don't forget some of the stuff that you've learned about giving feedback and being a valuable member of a community, which you all have been. Like, when it comes to like like Jogo was talking about, playing these not quite as polished, not quite $100 million worth of level design. When you play those, you can offer your nice way of giving feedback that you've learned using our Discord and Crayta. You can use those new skills where you're sort of phrasing things objectively. You're not, being horrible about their game or their level. You're doing it so that they can improve, and you're phrasing things in this is an opportunity rather than this is rubbish. I've been amazed at how quickly and how everyone in the community, when we do our Feedback Fridays, the positivity of the feedback, and in the game jams and all the jams and stuff, the positivity of the feedback, phrasing things nicely, it's just beautiful to see. And I think that's one of the best bits for me about our feedback process and the sort of Feedback Fridays and stuff like that. So shout out to you all for that.
Yeah.
Lovely stuff.
Yeah, we always did internal feedback on when we were developing, say, levels.
Yeah, we did. Chris says, how well will creators who have learned Lua be able to pick up languages like C# or TypeScript? So we did talk about this a little bit, Chris, already, but essentially, we talked about splitting the idea of the language, the syntax, which is, the sort of the right keywords and, the right way of phrasing things in specific languages. Split that from thinking like a programmer, thinking like a coder, being able to break a problem down into what are going to be, I'm going to need that script, I'm going to need to solve that problem using iteration or conditionals, or it's just a simple conditional. When you can start thinking about code not in terms of one language, and you can all do that. If you've been programming in Lua and coding in Lua, that is transferable to almost any language, because the language part doesn't really matter. It's the thinking part, the breaking the problem down and how to turn that into functions, iteration, conditionals, properties, and different data using different data types. I feel like we've kind of there's still some amazing ideas coming through. Oh, thanks. And object-oriented programming. Yeah, so Lua is based on object-oriented programming, and that is has pretty much been the standard in games since the 90s, since the late 90s, early 2000s. These ideas of encapsulated, self-contained little blocks of code that you attach to things, or the whole like of Crayta is built in like entity component system. So you have, your square, your mesh, which has got, I don't know, a rotation script attached to it, and it's got an explosion script attached to it, and all these different scripts attached to it. And so that all of that laying out using the code like that in those tiny self-contained little blocks of functionality, that's what OOP means. It's like little discrete blocks of functionality. Hopefully that wasn't just an explosion of words. I feel like I've said some stuff. Stuart, have you got anything to add with the OOP stuff?
Not really. I mean, you've kind of covered it, that quite a lot of the other games engines use it. Unity uses it, Unreal uses it. And there is kind of a crossover there.
Yeah, I actually have Unity and Unreal open right here. I think this is a perfect opportunity to segue.
This is a segue, yeah. It's like I set it up.
Yeah, it's almost exactly like that. So this is a Unity, an Unreal Engine game. I've just used the basic. When you load into Unreal, you can choose a template. I've chosen the third person template because if I preview this, lo and behold, I've got my character here. Frame rate is a bit shocking because I've got a lot going on in my PC. Oh, there we go. It was also compiling some shaders. But this might feel quite familiar, especially if you're coming from Crayta. So Crayta was built on top of Unreal Engine. And so this engine is sort of what sits behind Crayta. And it is a bit more technical. But what I wanted to show you was this is already sort of feels a little bit like Crayta. I mean, if you look around the screen, let's do a quick screen map of what's going on here. If you look down this right-hand side, this looks pretty similar to something that we've already got in Crayta that we've used regularly, which is our, we've got our hierarchy. We have our world tree. It's called an outliner here. And here, this details pane, we called it an entity editor. It's almost the same thing, right? So, this is where the values of all, the rotation, the position and all that sort of stuff. So you can see we can draw some parallels here between Crayta and how Crayta looks and how Unreal Engine looks. The main difference with Unreal Engine and with Unity, and I'll look at Unity in a minute, is that you can customize everything so much more in depth. So you can load in your own textures for a wall, for example, and stuff like that. So in order to be able to afford game makers to completely customize the thing that they're making, there's just